All right, welcome to week 8 of College Football Corner. Fletch here, flying solo. Haven't heard from Randy yesterday or today, so I hope everything's okay. It's not that big of a deal if certain things are getting in the way of him being on the show. I just hope that everybody's healthy and doing all right. So maybe he'll pop in here while I'm on. We'll never know, but we'll find out. So welcome to week 8. We quickly click subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell to get the notifications. And if you're watching on Facebook, give us a like and share with a friend for anybody that you think would be interested in listening to football discussions for college football. So this week is an interesting week. We have absolutely no ranked versus ranked games the entire weekend, which is basically started last Wednesday. So what does that mean? That means there's a ton of chances for somebody to be upset, a ranked team to fall to a non-ranked team. So the first game of the week was Wednesday night, and that's when it happened. It was Coastal Carolina getting knocked off by Appalachian State. Appalachian State doing what they do, and they go and beat people, and they go up and beat ranked teams. So something they do. So we got some interesting teams, matchups against unranked teams that are somewhat important to the college football landscape, the playoff landscape as it moves forward. In the American this week, we got Tulane is going at SMU. SMU is an undefeated team, and they're headed towards a season-ending matchup, so to speak, with Cincinnati, another ranked team undefeated, number 2. They're playing at Navy. So Cincinnati on the road. We all know Cincinnati is trying to get into that CFP top 4, which they're in right now. Can they hold that spot and stake their claim? They got to do it against Navy. Well, all the what do they call the military schools are the ones that are tough to play, especially on the road. Because you're going to get a hard fought game from those guys, whether it's Army, Navy, or Air Force. And so it's a tough one for them, but they need to win. They need to win with convincing fashion to please the naysayers, if you will. And then, of course, SMU needs to take care of business with Tulane, which I believe they should. I don't really see an upset here. I hope Navy doesn't upset Cincinnati. I like UC. I want them to move on and move in. It'd be really nice to see that story develop. In the Big Ten, we've got 3 games of interest for CFP contenders. Northwestern is playing at Michigan. Most people feel Michigan's probably going to take care of business. I think they will too. But some people are noting that Northwestern has kind of found a little stride here, and Michigan has, I don't say squeaked by, but they're not winning as convincing as they were earlier in the season. But the big thing with Michigan is they got great defense, but they're just a heavily run football team. So can they evolve into a run and passing team by the end of the year? We'll see if they even need to. If their rushing attack is that great with that 2-headed monster, they may not need to. Northwestern's not having a good year as a whole. They're playing better now, but it wasn't very hard to play better for the way they were playing earlier in the year. So I don't see an upset here. I think Michigan's going to hold serve moving into next week's game against Michigan State. Big Ten, big-time matchup, and Michigan State is off this week in preparation for that game. Penn State is at home hosting Illinois. Hard to see the Fighting Illini going in there and making the noise and upsetting the Nittany Lions, especially with Brett Bielema mouthing off as he did in the press this week about the quality of his players. You got to see. It's kind of hard to imagine those guys really wanting to go to war for him when he's throwing them under the bus. Whether he's right or not is not really contention. You don't just roll over your players like that mid-season, that's for sure. I know he inherited the team, but the team he inherited. Urban Meyer came out and said, hey, when he walked in, Luke Fickell inherited Tressel's team, and Urban Meyer inherited that team. And Luke Fickell went 6-7, and that's not a knock on Luke Fickell. He wasn't ready for that. He wasn't wanting that, but he sucked it up and did it because he loves the Buckeyes, and he wanted to right the ship. And that was like right before the season started, but he took that interim job. Urban Meyer stepped in and went 12-0. Doesn't matter who he played. Doesn't matter. He had no recruits. He just did it himself and coached them up and made them better players. and got that team to 12-0. They would have been for the Big Ten championship if they weren't under the NCAA violations and sanctions at that point. So the third game is Ohio State at Indiana. Indiana has given Ohio State a lot of problems the last couple of years, and they're banged up. They're down, but they're not necessarily out. Ohio State this year, their offense is really, really clicking. They're on the road. It's a big road test for C.J. Stroud since he's come back from his injury. I think it's the first road game for him, if I'm not mistaken. Look for Indiana to, try to punch him in the mouth. Tom Allen will have that team ready. They got some nice guys on defense that if Ohio State doesn't take care of business and they're in their slots and in their blocking schemes, they could have some problems keeping him upright, keeping the running game going. But ultimately, I think the talent is just too much on Ohio State's side. I think they roll, and I don't know if they roll big, but I didn't think they'd roll big on a couple games that they did. So I'm going to say they roll big in this one. So moving over to the ACC, which is turning out to be a pretty interesting conference this year, especially with Clemson kind of not being in the picture. They're not dead, but they're behind the eight ball pretty big. Wake Forest is an undefeated team this year. They're leading there. I think it's the I think they're, I can't remember if they're coastal or the Atlantic, but I think they're coastal. But either way, they are playing at Army. So now they're on the road, taking that offense and going up against, another military team. So it's a tough game. Army's always a tough out. Again, you get 4 quarters of hard-fought football. So we'll see what happens with them. I think that's a potential upset. I really do. Because Army just played Wisconsin. They played them pretty tough. And now they're playing Wake. I don't know if Wake's got the moxie and the muscle to do that. So I'm going to say that's a potential upset there. Clemson's going to Pitt. And I really think Pitt's going to roll in this game. I'm not saying they're going to blow them out, or anything. But I just think they're going to control the game all the way through. Clemson's defense is really good. They played Georgia amazing. But Georgia's offense wasn't nearly as good as they are now. And they're still getting better. So as great as Georgia's defense is, and that game was a 10-3 game, I don't think Clemson's defense is as good as Georgia's. It's good, but I don't think it's as good as. Clemson hasn't scored more than 17 points, I think, all year. They haven't scored 20, and it's possible they won't do it this time again. So I don't see an upset here. I don't think their offense has found it yet for Clemson. So taking Pitt in this one, number 23. NC State is at Miami, Florida. We all know Derek King's out for the count for the year, and I just don't see the Wolfpack getting upset in this one. In the Big 12, Oklahoma State is number 8, and they're playing at Iowa State. This, I think, is the upset of the week. I think Iowa State is going to put themselves in a good position in the Big 12 by winning this game. It's also going to take Oklahoma State out of the undefeated realm in the Big 12 with Oklahoma. Neither one of them teams have lost a Big 12 game. And Oklahoma's at Kansas, and I don't see an upset there. And Oklahoma sure does look like a different team with that Caleb Williams at quarterback. And, I'm not saying they're a national championship team, because I really think even though you can score a lot of points, you got to be able to make stops. Doesn't always happen that way. I mean, we saw a major shootout between Clemson and Alabama a number of years ago, but it wasn't because the teams didn't have good defense. They did have good defense that year. It was just their offense was so dynamic, it was just hard to stop. LSU was the same way a couple years ago. Great defense, but at the same time, they scored a lot of points. They had a lot of points scored on them in certain games, against Alabama, against Texas, to name a couple. So OU will beat Kansas, I believe. I think Iowa State beats Oklahoma State, and that's going to cause some interesting dynamics moving forward in the Big 12. And then the SEC, I think there's only one game that just really, I don't think it's an upset alert at all, Tennessee at Bama. Now, if it was at Tennessee, maybe, obviously Saban would have to have concerns about things being thrown at him. But there's just Tuscaloosa, Tuscaloosa. Bama, having come off a couple weeks ago, the upset loss to A&M. They sure looked good last week, just trouncing, I think it was Mississippi State, and I think they bounced Tennessee back to Knoxville. And finally, Notre Dame is at home hosting USC. Excuse me. I don't see USC winning this game. A lot of people have mentioned on the satellite radios that I listen to that USC is much better on the road. And that could be, but I just don't think they have found themselves. They don't have an identity. And so I just don't see Notre Dame losing this game. A lot of people don't think Notre Dame's a great team. I really do think they're a really good team. They played a tough UC team, which I think UC is a very good team. So, and they played a tough Florida State team at that time. And a lot of people paying Florida State with their record and stuff. And yeah, but I tell you, they got great players and they had a great game plan that day. But yes, it doesn't help Notre Dame that Florida State hasn't had a great year. But it sure does help them that UC has, even though they lost to them. So I think it's a tough road. It seems like it's always a tough road for Notre Dame to get in if they have a loss. They don't get the benefit of a championship, conference championship like they did last year. So, I would rather see them get in over a second team from any division or any conference, that is. As good as Georgia and Bama are and all that, if Bama beats Georgia and they're both one-loss teams, I just don't, nobody wants to see the same game again. Even, back when Ohio State and Michigan played each other 1-2 and it was a 3-point game, nobody wanted to see that game again, and they didn't. They saw Ohio State play Florida get killed. So, and then all of a sudden LSU and Alabama happened, and then now all of a sudden everybody's okay with it. Personally, I just don't think you get to play that team again. You had your chance, you lost, blah, blah, blah. But, it's not up to me. I'm not in the CFP, so it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, it'll be good. It'll be interesting, but that's just the way it goes. So, let's see what else we got here. We know Michigan State's off. I think there's a couple other teams off this week. I want to say, is Georgia off? But I'm trying to remember if they're playing anybody. I'll tell you here quickly. I think Georgia is off this week. And let's see, the Bulldogs. Yeah, they're off this week. They play next week against Florida. So next week we have Michigan State. I'm going to pull it up right here just so I'm in there. Week 9 is going to be a great weekend. They're all great. I mean, I just love college football, the games, the kids playing. But week 9 is Michigan at Michigan State. And I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm picking Michigan State in that game. It's a road game for the Blue, man, the Amazing Blue, and I don't think they're going to beat Mel Tucker. So Michigan State, and then we've got Ohio State and Penn State at Ohio State. Now, where's that game at? They haven't said that is a 7:30 game on ABC, so they have announced when that game is going to be played. So Penn State, Ohio State next week. Obviously, Michigan at Michigan State next week, and then Georgia, and they are playing at Florida. And I don't think Florida is going to be able to hang with Georgia. I really think Georgia is going to go into the swamp and bury the Gators, but we'll see. We never know. A lot of people are calling for Purdue to have another upset this week. Purdue this week is playing. I didn't mark that one down. We're going to week 8. Sorry, I went to week 7. Purdue, let's see. They coming off a huge upset against Iowa. That's a huge upset from the standpoint of Iowa's ranked and Purdue wasn't. But Purdue has a history of winning games against number 2 teams. They're like one of the best teams in history of beating number 2 teams. Go figure. Purdue's at home against Wisconsin. They're ranked, so I wouldn't call them winning this game an upset from a ranking standpoint, even though they're 25. And if Wisconsin won, I wouldn't call that an upset either, because Wisconsin, I think, is a great team that's just trying to find themselves. They're just everything. I think, personally, I heard that Paul Chryst is calling the plays this year, and I think that's possible why their offense is not doing as good as people thought it would be with the running backs and the history of running backs in that team and Graham Mertz, because their defense was doing great earlier on. When they played Penn State and lost, they controlled the ball for 40 minutes of a 60-minute football game. They just couldn't get it in the end zone. I don't think Graham Mertz has thrown a touchdown pass yet this year or something. It's pretty ridiculous. But it is what it is. It's at Purdue, and I'm going to go with Purdue in this one. I'm going to say Purdue is on a hot streak. They had a nice they play like 3 quarterbacks or something. They got some weird things going on there at Purdue. I think Wisconsin's just a mess, and they're playing on the road. If they were playing at home at Camp Randall, I'd probably take the Badgers, excuse me, on that one. So, but they're not, so I'm not. So, let's see. Nobody else clogging in with Randy missing, so I kind of roll fast on that stuff. But it's kind of a week where things are just kind of ho hum, except for the upset. So chime in, put on comments where you think the upset's going to come from this week. Once again, I'll go on record as saying I think Iowa State is going to be an upset over Oklahoma State. And I think a potential upset is Army over Wake Forest. I hope Navy doesn't beat Cincinnati. I don't think Northwestern can beat Michigan. Penn State and Ohio State, I think, are going to move on. Same with the top 10. I got the top 10 right here. And of course, this is the AP top 10. So it is what it is. Take it with at face value. But, Georgia's off. Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oklahoma State. I think all except Oklahoma State win. Oklahoma State, number 8, they're playing Iowa State, who's not ranked. I just think that's an upset. Michigan State's off. And after that, it's just a lot of teams that I don't think are really in the mix for a serious CFP berth. So that's why I haven't really gone over them. With no ranked teams playing each other, it's 25 plus games that have ranked teams in them, so to speak. So there are some people that are off. So, well, let's go to a short video this week. Again, give me a like, give me a share, and subscribe and hit the bell. And we thank you for checking in, and we will talk to you next week. Hopefully, Randy will be with us. So enjoy the football games, everybody.